A ship sank near the Strait of Hormuz, but the deeper warning may not be in the water. This narrow passage sits between Iran and Oman, yet the whole world watches it with unease.
Near Oman, an Indian cargo ship was attacked, caught fire, and went down in dark water.
The crew was rescued, but the fear did not sink with the ship.
Because Hormuz is not just a line on a map, it is a doorway for global energy.
When the doorway trembles, governments listen, markets react, and ordinary families eventually feel it. India is pulled in because its sailors and ships are exposed on the water.
Iran is pulled in because it treats the strait as power, leverage, and control.
China is pulled in because energy routes matter to its factories, cities, and future.
America is pulled in because no superpower can ignore a choke point like this.
One small body of water is suddenly carrying many nations' fears. And that is why this story matters beyond politics or oil prices. It shows how fragile the systems are that people quietly trust every day.
A ship burns, a route tightens, a headline spreads across the world. And somewhere far away, a person who never saw Hormuz begins to worry.
This is how fear travels, not only through oceans, but through the human heart. The map looks distant, but anxiety has a way of making distant things feel close. One strait becomes a symbol for everything people cannot control. Trade routes, fuel prices, national power, military threats, political words. All of it presses into one small passage, and then into one small heart.
We live in a world where a narrow sea can shake wide continents.
That should humble us. It should also wake us up. Not with panic,
Not with fake prophecy,
not with cheap fear,
but with sober attention to how quickly human confidence can collapse.
the world keeps building systems that promise safety, speed, and control.
Then one crisis reminds us that control was never as strong as it looked.
The sea does not need to be large to reveal a large fear. Sometimes one narrow place is enough to show what the world is leaning on. And sometimes one headline is enough to show what your own heart is leaning on.
So before we ask who controls Hormuz, we should ask who controls our fear. For most people, this crisis will not begin on a ship. It will begin in daily life. It may show up at a gas pump, in a bill, or in a tired conversation at home. It may show up when someone asks why everything feels unstable again.
The truth is, many people are exhausted by crisis after crisis. They do not need more noise. They need a place to put their fear. A sailor on the water does not feel like a symbol. He feels the danger in real time.
A family at home does not study shipping lanes. They feel the cost of uncertainty.
A young person reading the news may wonder whether the future is always this fragile. And that is where faith must become more than a word we say on calm days.
Faith has to meet us when the water is dark and the route is uncertain.
The Bible never pretends that nations are always peaceful or leaders are always wise. It tells the truth about fear, conflict, pride, storms, kings, and troubled times.
But it also tells us not to let fear become our ruler. That is a hard command when the headlines feel heavy.
It is hard when a crisis far away seems able to touch your kitchen table. It is hard when every alert makes the world feel less safe.
But Christian faith does not begin by denying danger. It begins by refusing to worship danger.
Fear may knock on the door of your heart, but it does not have to own the house.
The question is not whether the world will shake. The question is where your peace is anchored. Hormuz is a narrow strait. The human heart has narrow places too. There is a narrow place between panic and prayer. There is a narrow place between anger and compassion. There is a narrow place between scrolling endlessly and becoming still before God. And many people lose the battle there, long before any war reaches them.
They let the headline become louder than the voice of God.
They let fear decide how they speak, think, spend, and treat others.
But the way of Christ is different. It teaches us to grieve honestly, pray faithfully, and stand calmly in unstable times. It teaches us to see people before politics.
So we remember the sailors first, not just the strategy.
We remember families in the region, not just the price of oil. We remember leaders who need wisdom, not just the arguments they make. And we remember our own hearts, because fear can make us crawl if we let it.
This crisis is not an invitation to hate another nation.
It is not an invitation to predict the end of the world.
It is an invitation to wake up spiritually. To pray before panic,
To seek truth before outrage.
to hold peace before fear spreads.
When the world asks who controls the strait, faith asks a deeper question. Who controls your heart when the strait begins to close?
That question matters because fear often enters quietly.
It enters through a notification, a headline, a conversation, a rising bill.
Then it builds a small throne inside the soul. But God does not call his people to live ruled by every alarm.
He calls us to be watchful, wise, and prayerful. watchful enough to care about real suffering. Wise enough not to be manipulated by every wave of panic. Prayerful enough to carry the world before God instead of carrying it alone. So pray for those at sea tonight.
Pray for the innocent people who lived near the tension but did not create it. Pray for leaders in India, China, Iran, America, and across the region. Pray for restraint where pride wants escalation. Pray for wisdom where power wants control.
And pray for your own heart, because fear can spread faster than any headline.
Lord, protect those on dangerous waters and comfort those living under uncertainty. Teach us not to ignore the world, but not to be ruled by it either.
Give us courage without hatred, wisdom without pride, and peace without denial. When the world feels narrow and unstable, anchor us in you.
If this message helped you pause and pray, share where you are watching from. And subscribe for more real world stories seen through the lens of faith.